Bore da a croeso I chi gyd. Diolch yn fawr am gymryd yr amser heddiw I ddod I glywed am y Cynllun Strategol cyntaf Medr. Simon Brot ydw I, a fi yw Prif Weithredwr Medr. Good morning and welcome to you all, and thank you so much for taking the time today to come and hear about Medr's first strategic plan. So my name is Simon Perrott, and I'm the Chief Executive of Medr. Just going to go through a few housekeeping points before we begin. This event is going to be recorded and will be available on our website. Please post any questions you may have in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. Mae croeso I chi gyflwyno unrhyw cwestiynau yn y Gymraeg neu yn Saesneg. You're welcome to ask any questions in Welsh or English. And at times today we'll be speaking in Welsh, and when we do, we'll translate to English afterwards. So what's the plan today? So we're going to briefly talk through the plan, aim by aim, and share some of our thinking. And to do that, I'm joined by fellow members of the executive team who probably need no introduction to many of you, but I'm going to make them do it anyway. So James, you go first.
Diolch, Simon. Bore da, mae'n hyfryd gweld pawb yma heddiw. James Owen dwi, Prif Swyddog Gweithredu'r Medr. Morning everyone, I'm James Owen, the Chief Operating Officer here in Medr.
Bore da pawb, Bethan Owen ydw I, Cyfarwyddwr Gweithredol Rheoleiddio a Chyllid. Morning everyone, I'm Bethan Owen, I'm the Executive Director for Regulation and Funding.
Bore da pawb, Rhian Edwards ydw I, Cyfarwyddwr Gweithredol Policy. Morning everybody, Rhian Edwards, I'm the Executive Director for Policy at Medr.
Diolch. So if you haven't seen the plan yet, the draft is available on our website, www.medr.cymru. And just before we get into some of the detail, I just want to say a little bit about what we're trying to do here. Firstly, I want to thank all the team at Medr for their hard work in producing the draft strategic plan. Medr came into existence on the 1st of August of this year, so we're 2 months old, just over 2 months old at the moment. But however, this plan has been in the works for much longer than that. So you should be able to see our slide around our organisation's vision coming up now. And I'll just go through that and read it out because I think we've spent some time in crafting this. We will work in close collaboration with our partners to enable a tertiary education and research system which is centred around the needs of learners, society and the economy, with excellence, equality and engagement at its heart. And that principle of collaboration has been at the heart of our approach to engaging with you on this plan. We've been speaking to stakeholders across Wales, wherever and whenever we can, and thank you for the opportunities that we've had to speak to your organisations, your stakeholders and your teams. We've held some fantastic engagement events in North and South Wales, and we also have bespoke learner and employer engagement events that will be taking place later this month. And we want to keep that level of engagement and collaboration with our partners as we work towards this vision that you can see on the slide here. But we're also conscious that change doesn't happen overnight, and we're all developing that tertiary mindset in this new world. But we're not starting from scratch. Working on this plan, I've had the opportunity to hear some excellent examples of collaborative work across the tertiary sector. And we have to keep building on those foundations of respect and greater understanding for all parts of the sector. And we did not start from scratch on our plan either. The Welsh Government has given us an ambitious legislation with 11 strategic duties and also a statement of strategic priorities. And I've also heard loud and clear the message from the sector about managing a smooth transition into Medr. And I know that we need to be pragmatic about the context too, especially during a period of significant financial challenges. So you'll see in the plan that there are foundation commitments and growth commitments. And that reflects that there are some things that we want to achieve reasonably quickly over a short period of time, maybe the next 2 years, and some that may take longer. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Act reminds us and indeed compels us to think longer term. And that means that this is also a time to look at how we may do things differently. So this next slide shows a section from our plan drawing out our long-term ambitions. We have some big challenges in Wales at the moment. For example, participation rates are too low. The number of people not in education, employment or training is too high. 11%, that's more than 1 in 10 of our 16 to 18-year-olds are falling through the gaps. And some of the challenges we face aren't new. There may be things that we've been trying to tackle for years or even decades. But we have a collective responsibility to take the big problems we face and deal with them head on together. So let's start with our foundation aim. So why do we have a foundation aim? I think it's a reflection that building a highly effective organisation is fundamental to the success in the rest of the plan. Medr is a new organisation with new people and new roles, and we need to ensure that it provides the cornerstone that the rest of the plan is built on. You can see on the screen our foundation aim is to establish Medr as a highly effective, respected organisation and trusted regulator, shaping future ambitions for the tertiary education sector in Wales through collaborative working. So I'm going to hand over to James now. Can you talk a little bit about how the steps we've taken to do that, James?
Sure, Simon. So I think anyone who might have heard me talk over the last couple of years around establishing Medr would have heard me talk about a smooth transition, with a real ambition for ensuring there was no disruption to institutions, to learners, or to the workforce from our establishment. And I think when we became operational on the 1st of August, I'm pleased to say that I think we've achieved that aim. But this foundation aim in our strategic plan is really there to demonstrate that, that this is a process, not an event. We've got more to do to establish Medr as an organisation over the next couple of years, as we take on new functions and responsibilities through the Tertiary Education and Research Act. One of the things we have been spending quite a lot of time, though, on is the development of our values, because we think that's a really good signal for the organisation that we're aspiring to be in these next couple of years. And so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time explaining how we've arrived at these. We did quite a lot of engagement with stakeholders and lots of engagement with our own staff who've joined us from the Welsh Government and from Hefyd to develop these values. And we're really proud of these as a kind of aspiration for the type of organisation we want to be for the people who work here, but also the way that you will engage with us across Wales in whatever forum or organisation you work in. So 4 values, I'll very quickly just explain a little bit about those. Dysgu, our first one, is to learn and to teach. And this is all focused on our core mission, if you like. We're an organisation that is about the learner and about learning. And I think both for us as an employer, but also in the way that we want to be learning from other organisations and thinking about best practice, we're very keen that it helps us drive the organisation we want to be over the next couple of years. We're in a learning and listening mode quite a lot. Cydweithio is our second value, to work together and to collaborate. This is at the heart of the legislation that created us, and it is the way that we want to work. And you've heard Simon talk a little bit about that already and how we've gone about developing our plan. So working together across Wales to achieve our ambitions, we know is the only way really that we can be successful collectively to deliver on those ambitions we have for tertiary education. Our third value is Cynnwys Pawb, which is around including everyone and involving everybody. And again, this is a sense of the type of organisation we want to be. We want to recognise the challenges we have around widening participation and supporting learners all around Wales to achieve their full potential. But also as an organisation, I think making sure that we're listening and that we're involving everybody in the development of things like our strategic plan is integral to us. And last, but definitely not least, is rhywfaint, which is our value to exceed or excel. And I think this gives a sense and something that we try to capture in this plan of our long-term ambitions for the sector, but also the high standards that we're going to be setting for ourselves as an organisation to be the absolute best that we can be. Just lastly on the foundation commitment, I wanted just to say a little bit about our growth commitment that we put in there to improve the way we collect data information. This is really important to us over the next couple of years as an organisation. It's essential, I think, that we use data and information in a powerful way to minimise bureaucracy for providers in Wales, to provide a strong evidence base for our future decision making, and to ensure that we can evaluate the alignment of tertiary education provision with the needs of the economy and society in Wales. So one of our growth commitments over the next couple of years is to work very, very closely with providers, bringing those values into effect to think about the way we collect data and we use it. You'll see in our foundation aim, there's also a little bit in there about the type of regulator we want to be, and perhaps I'm just going to hand to Bethan, who might want to say a few words about that.
Yeah, sure. As an effective regulator, we want to work with providers, ensure that we're well informed and have a good understanding of the strengths and opportunities, as well as the risks, challenges and areas for development, and to understand how they're reflected in providers' own strategic aims. We will also be looking to understand how those aims align with Medr's strategic aims and the needs of Welsh society and the economy. We'll use that understanding to develop a risk-based regulatory system, which will be subject to consultation over the next 2 years. The aim is to establish a registration system for higher education by the 1st of August 2026, but with terms and conditions also being developed at the same time and consulted on for other providers. Our regulatory system will underpin all the strategic aims. As James mentioned, we want to ensure that all our decisions are based on the best information possible. Good data and information supports good decisions. That means we'll be working hard to improve the quality of our data, to initially establish a baseline to assess current performance, but we'll also develop our data collection and establish a performance framework, not merely to inform the monitoring of compliance, but more significantly as a means to benchmark performance, to enhance outcomes for individuals and society, and show at a provider and system level the progress being made and the difference being made in improving participation, progression and outcomes for learners in Wales. Medr, as an official statistics body, will establish itself as a trusted source of data analysis, information and advice relating to post-16 provision in Wales. Simon, back to you for the next strategic aim.
Yeah, Bethan. So moving into strategic aim 1 then, this is to focus the tertiary education sector around the needs of the learner, their experience, achievement and well-being, ensuring they are involved in the decision-making and encouraging participation in learning at all stages in life. I'm going to hand over to Rhea to talk this one through.
Thanks, Simon. Morning, everybody. Well, quite frankly, we believe that putting the learner at the heart of the system really enhances learner outcomes and better prepares individuals for personal and professional success. We really want to ensure as an organisation and as a sector that we are making decisions that fully take into account the consequences for learners. We know that participation is one of the biggest challenges that the tertiary education sector is facing. Simon referenced some neat figures earlier in his presentation, but when you actually look at some of the most recently published statistics, those figures do remain stubbornly high. We've got about 6.6% of 16 to 18-year-olds and 14% of 19 to 24-year-olds not engaging in any form of employment, education and training. Similarly, within the adult education sector, participation is the lowest in the UK nations, and also we have the lowest participation in higher education in the UK nations. So we have some challenges that we need to address. Interestingly, during our engagement events to inform the strategic plan, we heard from you as fellow stakeholders in the market that we can do a lot more to combat inequalities and to ensure that learners can access education, training, regardless of their social, cultural, economic or organisational factors. So in the plan, what have we committed to do? Well, we committed to create an environment very much increases participation, particularly from traditionally underrepresented groups. We want to be able to place the voice of the learner very much at the heart of our decision-making process. And there's some really new and innovative areas of work that will be taken forward as part of this strategic aim, including the development of our learner engagement code, learner protection plans, and a learner voice forum that really truly recognises the diverse learner community that we have across the tertiary education system. We also know that mental health and well-being continues to be a significant factor impacting on learner experience, and we will develop a framework for mental health and well-being, but very much building on the excellent work that we know is already taking place across the sector.
Great, diolch Rhian. So the next strategic aim is to create a coherent education and training system where all can acquire the skills and knowledge they need to make a real impact on a changing economy and society. James, do you want to kick this one up?
Yeah, I'm going to just take us back to our values for a second, Simon. So I think cydweithio, meaning to work together or collaborate, recognises that we can achieve far more together than we ever could alone. And I think this aim really talks to the type of organisation we want to be and the way that we want to work with everybody with an interest and a stake in the tertiary education system to achieve some of the long-term ambitions we've set out in this plan. And indeed, this principle of cydweithio is hardwired, if you like, into Medr through the strategic duties placed upon us in the Tertiary Education and Research Act. And we've tried to reflect this very clearly in all aspects of our strategic plan, but I think particularly in this strategic aim, particularly our duties to promote collaboration between tertiary education providers, schools and employers, to promote coherence in the provision of tertiary education and the alignment of provision with research and innovation priorities, and to promote tertiary education and research in a way that contributes to the development of a sustainable and innovative economy in Wales. So really putting cydweithio at the heart of what we're doing through this strategic aim. And I think Rhea might just want to talk a little bit about some specifics of how this strategic aim will help us get the skills we need in Wales.
Yeah, thanks, James. But interestingly, as the plan reflected, employers in Wales frequently refer to skills deficits as being one of the key issues inhibiting progress and growth. The proportion of employers reporting vacancies in 2022 was 22%, and 14% of those businesses reporting skills gaps in their existing workforce. And when we actually speak to employers very much describe the need for a mix of technical, practical and soft skills, and tell us that we need a system that is much more agile and able to respond much more quickly to the pace of change, particularly in respect to digital enhancement, AI, automation, and the emergence of new skills that we need to support our new industries, particularly, for example, driven by our nation's ambitions around net zero. So we believe that improved coherence in the sector will very much lead to learning and career pathways that are easy to navigate and which will encourage and facilitate greater mobility within the sector. This, we feel, will help drive up participation, ensuring good learning opportunities that are accessible where and when people want to access them. As the plan sets out, we will build links with industry, and importantly, during the course of this month, we will be speaking to employer representative bodies to continue that dialogue. And we want to ascertain the skills gaps, working with partners and influence the skills system to deploy funding to meet this need. This will equally help us where we want to promote a culture of innovation and knowledge exchange and promote collaboration with industry between the tertiary education sector. Apprenticeships are a really key part of the skills system in Wales, and we are committed to work with you as a sector to design our future apprenticeship programme, very much ensuring that rigorous standards of occupational competence are at the core of that programme. But let's not forget, basic skills are an essential part of the economy, as they very much serve as a foundation for a productive workforce, helping to foster economic development and, importantly, promoting social equity. We know that people with strong basic skills can engage more effectively in civic activities and become more effective contributors to society more broadly. And that's why, again, in the plan, you'll see that we've committed to review basic skills provision.
Great, thanks, Rhian. So moving on to the next strategic aim, this is around to ensure tertiary education aims for excellent standards, quality of provision, and raises educational expectations in order for learners to achieve their ambitions. It's back to you, Rhian.
Thank you. Well, we know that high quality education directly impacts participation, it impacts on learner outcomes, engagement, and overall success. We also know that continuous improvement very much fosters a culture of innovation, encouraging you as providers and the broader sector to explore new approaches to curricula, to teaching, to technologies, to support services, research opportunities, all of which really enhance the learning experience. So, as the plan sets out, Medr will be looking to establish a performance framework that recognises the full breadth of the tertiary education sector's contribution and establishes a means for benchmarking performance to enhance outcomes for individuals and society. As part of this work, we'll be consulting upon a set of ambitious performance indicators to drive continuous improvement. And we'll also work really, really closely with the sector and with our partners to help share best practice to drive continuous improvement. I think it's really important to note, and hopefully you've got a sense of that as we've been talking this morning, that the strategic aims don't exist in isolation. There is such a read across and cross connection between all of the elements of the plan. And despite this strategic aim very much focusing on quality and continuous improvement is very much a cross-cutting theme across the whole plan. It's why we have an organisational value, ymgynghori, around excellence, and why we have high aspirations for tertiary education and research in Wales. And we've always set ourselves high standards to be the best that we can be as an organisation. I think importantly, though, in the considerations for this strategic aim, we do need to reflect on how we make the best use of our funding to really support and influence continuous improvement. Beth, and this very much sits in your portfolio. I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, brilliant. A smooth transition will not involve significant changes to the existing funding methodologies in the foundation years, but we are also very aware of the financial challenges facing providers and how they vary in different parts of the post-16 sector. In the foundation period, we will aim to identify how we're making best use of the funding of approximately 900 million currently allocated by Medr, and where there are opportunities to develop funding methods for the future to influence continuous improvement in the performance and learning outcomes that Rhian was referring to. That may include some funding streams in future that are applied system-wide to encourage and support collaboration and the progression in the interest of the learners. But all such funding methodologies and the development of them, as well as Medr's funding policy, will be subject to separate consultation.
Yeah. Great. And moving on to strategic aim 4 now, to grow internationally acclaimed research and inspire innovation throughout the tertiary education sector. Rhian, do you want to pick this one up?
I will, thank you. So this strategic aim really has people at its heart. Without a high quality workforce, we can't deliver excellent research and innovation. So what does this mean? Well, it means that we need to very much build a culture and environment in which research and innovation are done, which is positive and inclusive, recognises and values diverse contributions, and therefore attracts and retains people from across the globe. We will support researchers and innovators to be able to compete for external sources of funding, and we're very much working with UK colleagues to explore how the challenges of meeting the full costs of research can be met. This means that we need to maximise the benefits of our research and innovation, collaborating and focusing on our strengths. And here we can build on the work of the Wales Innovation Network in harnessing the different contributions of the different parts of the sector can make, as well as supporting more of the work with business, industry and the public sector to translate the results of our excellent research into economic and social benefit. So the creation of Medr, very much a great opportunity to get better join-up between our skills system and the needs of innovative businesses, really making sure that they have a well-trained workforce that can create and deliver new products, new services, which will bring about economic growth and prosperity for us as a nation in Wales. Finally, it's really important to note that research and innovation, that we don't just see that in isolation. This aim very much shows how it's integrated across our strategic duties. It speaks not just to the duty to promote research and innovation, but very much contributing to a sustainable and innovative economy. It's also contributing to our duties around equality of opportunity, continuous improvement, promoting a civic mission, and importantly, a global outlook.
Sure. And just a reminder before we get into the final strategic aim, if you do have any questions, please post them in chat and we'll try and pick them up. So strategic aim 5, this one is about encouraging greater use of the Welsh language and increased demand for and participation in learning and assessment through the medium of Welsh. Beth, I think you can start this on me.
Mae hyrwyddo a manteision dysgu a siarad Cymraeg yn thema graidd i ni. A dyna pam ydym wedi ei gynnwys fel nod strategol yn ei hawl ei hun. Byddwn nhw'n edrych ar sut y gallwn ni ehangu cyfleoedd i ddysgu Cymraeg a derbyn addysg yn y Gymraeg. Ond hefyd fel corff Cymraeg newydd yn anelu i arwain trwy enghraifft, fel mudiad sy'n defnyddio'r Gymraeg yn ei sefydliad a'n gwaith dyddiol. Promoting the benefits of learning the Welsh language is a core theme for us, which is why we've drawn it out as a strategic aim in its own right. We can see this through a sector lens, looking at how we can expand opportunities to learn Welsh and learn in the Welsh language, but also through an organisational lens as we lead by example, as an organisation embracing a commitment to grow the use of Welsh throughout our organisation. James, would you like to talk about how we've gone about that?
Yeah, diolch Beth. Well, and I think we've made a good start here, not least with our name and our choice of name being Medr, which is a Welsh word for skills or ability. And we're really keen to embed Cymraeg in everything we do in Medr, and we want to model best practice. And again, if I just link back to the conversation we had earlier on our values, and particularly the value of dysgu, I think that's really important for us here. We want to support the use of the Welsh language in Medr in all aspects of our business. And we want to help our people learn and develop their skills. And of course, we want to listen to others and learn from others about what they're doing in their organisations to promote and support the journey towards Cymraeg 2050. Because, you know, not just for us as an organisation, but actually encouraging greater use of Cymraeg within Medr will be fundamental to achieving this strategic aim outside of Medr, and particularly, I think, through our work with partners. And I'm not sure if, Rhian, you might want to say a little bit about how we're going about that.
Yeah. Well, it's a really exciting policy context that we're working within at the moment. You will know that the Welsh Government has set an ambition to achieve 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. That as a government, they've recently published their Welsh Language and Education Bill, which aims to give every child in Wales the opportunity to become a Welsh speaker and to support people of all ages to learn Welsh and develop their Welsh skills they already have. And we very much see the tertiary education sector plays a big part in this national ambition. Our partners believe that we can do more to encourage learners in tertiary education to learn Welsh and to learn in the Welsh language, also recognising the need to increase the number of people who can teach through the medium of Welsh. As an organisation, Medr is really pleased to be working with the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol as our designated partner who will advise us on our strategic duties to increase Welsh medium and bilingual provision in the tertiary education sector and encourage demand for it. This is very much a partnership which has been brought about by a shared ambition to improve opportunities for learners through the medium of Welsh. And actually, it's why it features in the strategic plan as a strategic pillar in its own right, and why we've committed to develop a national plan for Welsh language within the tertiary education sector.
Yeah. So I think that's at the end of the slides, and I'm not sure, but I think some questions have been coming through, James, and you've got the laptop there, so perhaps you could sort of MC this a little bit, and we'll pick up some of the questions.
Thanks, Simon. And we will talk in a minute about this, how to respond and get involved in our consultation. But before we do that, we are starting to get some questions through. So I'll just read a few of them out. The first one is a big thank you for the presentation. Values and strategic aims are impressive and welcome, and it's exciting to see Medr being launched. The question is interested in how the strategic aims were developed, with particular reference to whatever successful national models in other countries. Is there anything on our website that describes the processes in creating our model and the other reference models that inform the creation of our aims and values, including our proposed next steps? Maybe if I might start with that a little bit, and then maybe hand to you, Simon, if you want us to talk a little bit about other countries. I think for me, one of the key principles for us in preparing this plan was to take into account a couple of things, not least our legislative duties that are placed on us through the Tertiary Education and Research Act, Hopefully you can see in our strategic plan how we've tried to recognise those 11 strategic duties that are set out in legislation. And we were very keen to make sure, as cross-cutting as they are, that you could see them reflected in the aims that we've developed through this planning process. The other really important thing in developing our plan was the statement of priorities that was set out by the Welsh Ministers for us as an organisation back in February. And that set out, if you like, the remit for Medr, particularly over the next period of time that Welsh Ministers want us to focus our attention on. So as part of developing our strategic plan, we absolutely wanted to take into account the aims, the priorities that came through from Welsh Ministers, the duties that are placed on us by legislation, but also I think the context in which we're operating in. And that came to us, really strongly in the engagement events we held in June to talk about our plan with partners from all over Wales. And they were very well attended, and we had a lot of input into some of the challenges and opportunities that the creation of Medr could inform. So I think in creating our plan, we tried to take into account all of that. We won't have got everything right. There will be some things, no doubt, as an organisation that we, and you may tell us that we should be emphasising more. And one of the reasons now for this consultation is to give everyone another opportunity to come and talk to us about where they think, we have got things right or where we could strengthen or improve. So that's a bit about the process, about how we've gone about determining on our strategic aims. And I guess one of the questions through this consultation is, have we got those right, or are there things we've missed? I don't know, Simon, if you want to pick up a little bit about learning from other national models.
Yeah, it's really interesting that we've looked at some of the models in other countries. There's more work to do there. New Zealand's interesting, isn't it, in terms of size of population, some of the geographical challenges as well, so some similarities to us here in Wales. And they've had a kind of tertiary setup for some time now there. So we've had some engagement there. Again, looking at some of the other nations, Finland's an obvious one, isn't it? There's been some recent visits to Finland from colleagues across the sector. Also, what I'm picking up as well is that other countries are looking at us as well. A number of other nations looking to develop a similar kind of joined up tertiary sort of model here. And I think we feel we're at the forefront of that. It's been a long time coming, isn't it? The Hayes-Combe review was in 2016, and here we are in 2024, having just set up this body. But that is something important to actually have that global outlook, I think, and think about what other nations are doing and to share those experiences. I do think, though, that we have to create something that is right for Wales. We have some challenges that are similar across the globe and some things that are particular to Wales. So it's important that we actually create something that is right for Wales in the context that we're working in. And just, I know as we mentioned earlier, but just to emphasise as well, is that we also have a steer from Welsh Government here in terms of the legislation, the strategic duties that are in that legislation, and also the statement of priorities as well that we've received as well. So we're creating a strategic plan within that context. And just a reminder, I'll remind at the end that this is a draft strategic plan. This is where we've got to. So your views are really, really important. If you think that there are things that we need to dial up or dial down, or things that we've missed, then we really would welcome those views.
Thanks, Simon. The next question we've got is, we, the trade unions, ensured that the duty was placed on the face of the Tertiary Education and Research Act to promote collaboration between providers and trade unions. And the question is, how do you think the strategic plan realises that? Again, maybe I'll say a few words and then maybe hand to you if you want to add anything, Simon.
Sure.
I think we made a good start there. We've had, since we were established and even before we were operational, we've been having regular meetings with trade union representatives from across Wales, and very keen to continue that engagement now we're operational, because recognising the importance of social partnership in everything we do and the relationships that exist between trade unions and employers is critical if we're going to achieve some of the ambitions that we've set out in our draft strategic plan. I think particularly for us, which is I think quite unusual but quite special about us as an organisation, is we do have associate members on the board of Medr who were appointed by the Welsh Ministers with a specific role to represent the interests of the workforce, both academic and professional services. And we were very delighted that they took up post in September as we at the first meeting of Medr becoming operational. So I think in everything that we've done to date and we will continue to do, we're very keen to ensure that that close working and collaboration with us as an organisation continues, so that we can accurately reflect the views, perspectives of trade unions and of course the workforce in the development of our plan. I'm not sure if Simon wants to add anything to that.
You've covered most of the things I was going to say, really, but just, obviously social partnership is one of our strategic duties and something that we take very seriously. And throughout the strategic plan, you'll see the emphasis on collaboration and working together. And our trade union partners are absolutely integral to that.
Thanks. We've got a question in Welsh, which we're going to ask Bethan if she wouldn't mind reading for me now.
Okay, yeah. Y cwestiwn yn Gymraeg ydy, siom nad oes sôn o gwbl am ddarpariaeth anghenion dysgu ychwanegol na llwybrau anghenion dysgu ychwanegol dwys, hyd yn oed o dan cynnwys pawb. Bod hwn yn sôn am gynnwys partneriaid ond dim y llwybrau anghenion dysgu ychwanegol. Wrth sôn am gydraddoldeb strategol, sonir am gymunedau gweledig, ond dim sôn am ddisgyblion a darpariaeth ychwanegol. Nac yn cael ei gynnwys o dan ddyletswydd statudol. Pam nad yw hwn ddim yn cael sylw yn eich dogfen na llwybrau cyfrwng Cymraeg i'r sector addysg dwys. Shall I read it in English?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll,
Yeah.
yes, okay. So the question is stating that disappointing that there's no mention at all about additional learning needs provision or intensive additional learning need routes, even under involving everyone. But this mentions partner involvement, but not the additional learning need routes. When talking about strategic equality, there's mention of visible communities, but no mention of pupils and additional learning need provision. Neither is this mentioned in the statutory duties. Why isn't this covered in our document? And also no mention of Welsh medium routes to the intensive additional learning needs sector.
Shall I pick that one up?
Yeah, please.
Good point, and something that we can take away and reflect on. And speaking personally as a parent, I suppose, of a child with additional learning need, this is something that's like really quite close to my heart. And some of the things that I've been involved with previously in my career is that joy really of actually seeing learners with additional learning needs actually making sure that they are achieving the things that they can achieve. I think something for us to consider. We've included in the document the importance of inclusivity and making sure that all learners actually achieve and maximise their potential. But thank you for the comment, and we'll take that on board.
Thank you. A question probably for Reindex, and it's around employers. So employers have always reported skills deficits, and when they identify the need for something, they're not necessarily saying they don't value what skills learners have. But sometimes employers can have limited understanding of pedagogy and curriculum and the interconnection between skills, knowledge, or the mastery of subjects. So what can Medr do to ensure there is a constructive debate between all stakeholders beyond processes of one-way consultation?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just to be really clear, the way in which we would go about having dialogue across the sector is not necessarily just this kind of consultation event, which is very much sort of one way. We very much want to be stimulating that dialogue, and interestingly, particularly in the whole sort of area of skills, we've been very active within that space since starting a couple of months ago. A few weeks ago, we actually went to the cross-party group on apprenticeships. We are going to the cross-party group on construction. We've been having really active engagement with our regional skills partnerships and have a really strong agreement in terms of principles of partnership and the way in which we will engage there. We're also considering how we sort of establish quite potentially a sort of an employer representative forum to make sure that we've got that dialogue, and that will allow us then to better connect the voice of the providers with obviously our industry partners. So we recognise that we have got a lot of work to do to try to pull all of that together, and also recognising the really diverse voice within the business community to make sure that we're taking account of the voice of small, medium SME organisations, micro businesses, right the way through to the larger style businesses, and how do we make sense of what the business need is out there, and then how we then can facilitate that conversation with our tertiary education providers. So very much at the forefront of our thinking at the moment, and actually what we would probably want to do is come out to you as a sector to ask you how best we can do that. We're not sitting here with all of the answers. We want to co-produce those answers and those solutions with you as a sector.
Korean. I think the word facilitation is really important there, isn't it? And some of our, we've talked about Medr being a funder and regulator, but also, it became really apparent to us when we did some of the engagement events I talked about a moment ago, earlier in the summer, that we had a real role in bringing people together. And I think, that your answer really plays to that, bringing institutions together with providers to think about the skills needs of the future. Our next question, the plan doesn't refer to colleges, universities, schools, etc. It's instead using the generic term providers. Although I accept the need to focus on developing the tertiary system, although this term isn't defined in the document, is there a risk that the difference between these institutions, the way they are funded and their unique contribution may not be fully acknowledged in this plan? Maybe Simon, you want to say a little bit about that?
Good point, and something for us to reflect on. I think providers is a term we've used because I suppose it's an easy term that covers what people are actually doing. But when we talk about tertiary, it doesn't mean that everything is the same. I think one of the fascinating things in the role that I've been doing is actually getting a greater understanding of that breadth and diversity of the post-16 or tertiary sector that we have in Wales. So it doesn't mean to say that everybody gets treated exactly the same. There are some things that will actually be consistent across the sector, but also it's a recognition of the unique circumstances that different parts of that sector are in as well. But thank you for the comment.
I think the next question is related to this. Medr is in a position where it can fundamentally change the disparity that exists between academic and vocational learning. Whilst not explicitly stated in the plan, is parity of esteem between academic and vocational learning part of the ambition for Medr? And if so, how will you go about achieving this? I think the easy answer to that is yes. Parity of esteem is something that we're very passionate about here in Medr. I don't know, Simon, you want to maybe say a little bit about how we're working towards that?
Yeah, we've tried to reflect that in the language in the document, maybe without using the actual phrase parity of esteem. But when we talk about all learners achieving their potential, when we talk about flexibility provision, what is right and what is best for the learner. And we know that when we get that right, we've all seen it, haven't we? When you get the learner on the right program, the right course, with the right progression, then things work really, really well. That isn't always the case. And that's speaking as a previous head of a provider, feeling that as well. So there's work for us to do culturally. That's not just sort of our responsibility as Medr. That's a wider societal thing, isn't it, in terms of valuing the different routes that people can take. But what we want to make sure is that those routes are valued, respected, and that actually people achieve the aims that they want through whatever route is appropriate for them. But we all know, don't we? There's work for us to do as a nation around that.
Simon, probably a couple of questions coming in now for you, Ryan. How does Medr plan to set concrete participation targets for lifelong learning, particularly for older adults and economically inactive individuals?
Well, these questions are quite interesting because the how is the part of the conversation that we want to have with you as the sector. Strategic plan very much sets out our ambitions, but the actual detail of the delivery, this is what we want to have those conversations and co-produce with you. I think particularly within the realm of the adult learning sphere, we do need to remember the legislation will still continue to play a big factor here. So for example, within the Tertiary Education and Research Act, section 94 is very much around bringing proper facilities in place for learning for post-19-year-olds. We are working really closely with Welsh Government at the moment in terms of thinking about what the policy looks like to inform that strategic duty moving forward. And then what Medr will have to do is think about the finances and the resources it has that goes into the adult learning sector to be able to deliver upon not just the policy ambitions, but bringing that back to our strategic plan in terms of making sure that we have an inclusive infrastructure, skills infrastructure that enables for people to learn when and where they want to. So I think it's a big area for us and an area that we will need active dialogue with you as a sector on.
So the questions are coming in thick and fast, and I'm conscious of trying to cover as much breadth as we can. So anything we don't come back to, we'll think about how we can respond to participants outside of this meeting. But we've got about another 5-10 minutes or so for questions, so I'm going to be a bit selective. So apologies if I don't get to everything, but we'll do our best in the time available. Probably another one for you, Ryan. First up, how will Medr develop a framework to strengthen adult community learning across Wales, particularly in rural and disadvantaged areas?
I think quite simply in collaboration with you as a sector, you know, that this is a key underpinning of what we're trying to do. We need to understand what the access issues are. We need to understand, we need to understand the baseline. We need to understand how people are engaging, but more importantly, who are the people that aren't engaging and how that type of framework will better reach out to those individuals who will really benefit from that type of adult learning provision. So this is the active work, you know, the actual writing of the strategic plan almost feels like the easy bit. The actual sort of really exciting detailed work now comes working with you as a sector to start putting the detail around those hows and how we develop such that framework.
And I think Daphne's going to pick up the next one for us.
Yeah, a cwestiwn Cymraeg arall yn fan hyn, and I'll read it in Welsh and English and start our response to it. Yr adran wanaf yn y cynllun yw'r nod strategol 5. Diffyg manylder na dealltwriaeth o addysg cyfrwng Cymraeg. Soniwyd am ddigwyddiadau ymgysylltu ar draws Cymru, ond mi chafwyd hyn gyda'r sector cyfrwng Cymraeg. Heriau gweithlu, diogelu llwybrau dysgu cyfrwng Cymraeg, heriau cyllido, cyfataledd rhwng cymwysterau a llwybrau dysgu. Nid yw'r Coleg Cymraeg yn arbenigwr yn y maes nac yn ddarparwr o ran llwybrau dysgu Cymraeg. So this question is saying that the weaker section of the plan is strategic aim 5. A lack of detail or understanding of Welsh medium education, engagement. Engagement events were mentioned across Wales, but this did not happen with the Welsh medium sector. Workforce challenges, protecting Welsh medium learning pathways, fiscal challenges, equality between qualifications and learning paths. The Coleg Cymraeg is not an expert in this field or a provider of post-16 learning pathways. Dwi am ddechrau ateb hwn, I'm going to start answering and then turn to colleagues. Yn cysylltu strategol in the engagement events in Llandudno ac yn Gaerdydd, we did have engagement with a cross-section of the providers of Welsh medium education. I happen to be facilitating those tables. We clearly need to understand the breadth of post-16 provision, but we do have experience, and we also fully accept that the Coleg Cymraeg also does not have the breadth of understanding. But we are looking to understand, I think this was one of the points I was making in the regulation piece, understanding the breadth of the sector, the challenges facing the sector, the opportunities as well, and the opportunities for working in the best interest of the learner, boed hynny yn gyfrwng y Gymraeg neu yn ddwyieithog, whether that's through the Welsh language or bilingually. We'd very much welcome a more detailed response, and we would like to engage with that and see whether there are areas that we can potentially address the concerns.
The only thing I'd add to that is that in the legislation, the designated body to advise Medr around this area is the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol. And we've had some really positive discussions with them in terms of not just the advice, the formal advice that they actually give us, but an ongoing dialogue. I think there's more to do. There's more work in this area. And the question that I know, and I can see one later, picks up some of the challenges. When you think about rural parts of Wales, it is a very complex picture, but we are really committed to that strategic aim in terms of enhancing those opportunities for learners to learn through the medium of Welsh.
I'm going to move us on to strategic aim number 4 and a question we've had on that. So the focus is welcome, but does Medr plan to develop any new ideas or approaches to supporting high quality research, e.g. in addressing challenges in the Welsh evidence ecosystem? Rhian, perhaps you want to pick up.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I mean, I think the area around research and innovation is a really interesting one, and I think we always need to recognise that we're very much part of a UK-wide and international context in terms of delivering some of our ambitions within that strategic aim. But we do have obviously the ambition to increase our UKRI share. We've got to recognise the importance of attracting and increasing high-quality researchers too, and supporting our universities to focus on what they do best. I think again, perhaps we're kind of going into the how there in terms of how we develop some of those new ideas and approaches. And again, part of our sort of ongoing dialogue with you as a sector is to inform those approaches that we take. Anything better you wanted to
Um,
add on that?
I think reflecting on the question about learning as well from other parts of the world, and I'm also going to refer to learning other parts of the UK. We see it as a strength that Medr is a body that will fund and regulate all of the activities of providers, and that very much includes research. So to understand the challenges and the opportunities for our providers, we also need to be working very constructively on how we can strengthen our research and innovation base, and how we can support providers in achieving additional funding and additional funding streams for that activity.
Beth, then we've probably got time for a couple more. So again, I'll try and pick some so we get a breadth of the kind of conversation that we've had going. So we mentioned the high percentage of 16 to 18 and 19+-year-olds classes NEET and our intention to change this. But the plan doesn't mention the Jobs Growth Wales Plus programme, where a high percentage of learners in these age groups are being supported by providers. Is it your intention to bring the programme into the plan as part of the overall solution to achieving the aims? Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. It's not necessarily the intention to bring it into the plan, because Jobs Growth Wales Plus is not a programme that Medr has responsibility for delivering. However, and really interestingly, we have a joint meeting with the team that actually delivers the Jobs Growth Wales Plus programme next week, because we recognise that as they start to think about the future of the Jobs Growth Wales Plus programme, we will at the same time be thinking about the future for some of our skills intervention programmes, such as apprenticeships. We recognise that if what we're trying to do is create a more coherent and joined up skills system, we actually are responsible for only a part of that. There is, the employability provision the Welsh Government continues to deliver is a big part of that skills system. So we really recognise that we're having really active and really positive contributions with our partners in Welsh Government. And actually, Medr is the only external organisation that now sits on the Welsh Government's Employability and Skills Board, because we recognise that we need to have that join up between the different programmes if we're going to have a coherent and effective skills system in Wales.
Thanks, Ryan. And a question probably for you next, Simon. Having tertiary education and research under one body is a great opportunity for joined up working across the whole sector. How will Medr as an organisation ensure that there is cross-working internally and that FE, sixth forms, HE, adult learning, etc. doesn't become siloed in different departments?
It's a good question. And I think one of the things I'd say about that is that I mentioned earlier about us developing a tertiary mindset, not to think in silos and to think about how we can have more breadth across the whole tertiary sort of system. And I think that's really, really important, because there are maybe opportunities here that haven't quite been realised yet. And that's something that, again, this notion of actually working together and playing to the strengths of institutions is really, really important. We're going to focus on the things that we can control. There are lots of things in this space. I mean, Brian alluded to one like earlier that aren't totally within our control. But I suppose, again, this is about how we collaborate and work together and influence and work with all aspects of the different parts of the sector, but also working with government as well in areas that they control.
Thanks. I think we've got time for one more probably. So on parity of esteem between vocational and academic learning, Medr also needs to ensure it is not building in at the outset, that's a good word, dictonomous view of the future of learning. Much academic learning is vocational. Much vocational learning has strong academic foundations, both practically and theoretically. There's a risk that this binary language pulls against the intention to create a more unified approach within a more seamless post-16 sector. Again, Simon, is there anything you want to say around that?
You deliberately given me all the difficult ones, James.
Well, that's the problem being the boss.
For me, this comes back to what's best for learners. We have got such a diverse sector, haven't we, with a huge breadth of learners, and how we engage with those learners is one challenge, isn't it, in terms of they're all in different sort of parts of the ecosystem. But the thing that we need to hang on to as Medr, but as all of us together as a sector, is recognizing that learners are all individuals, they're all different, and doing what is actually right and best for them and helping them to find the pathway that helps them to succeed. And I think if we get that right as well, there's also a financial aspect to this as well, isn't it? If people make the right decisions earlier, then that has a positive impact on the public purse. And we know that the fiscal challenges are going to be quite significant in the coming years. So getting that right, I think, is really important.
Thanks, Simon. So apologies if we didn't get the time to come to all of the questions we have. I have seen a few more that have come through. We will do our best to pick those up outside of the meeting. But we just wanted to close by saying a little bit about, the consultation process that we're in now before we close the session today. So it is really important to recognise this is a consultation process. We are really interested in your views, your questions, and your thoughts and perspectives. Consultation opened last week. So grateful if you could spend some time reading the plan and letting us know your thoughts. You can respond through our website in Cymraeg or English. I'm grateful for all your responses to the consultation. We will look at them all, and we will consider them all in developing a final version of our plan, which we intend to submit to Welsh ministers before Christmas. The consultation closes on Friday, the 25th of October, so a good couple of weeks for everyone to respond. There's an online form on our website, which we'd be really grateful if you could use to respond to the consultation, because that will help us analyse the responses efficiently. But if you want to respond in another way, you can, of course, email us at the address on the screen now, or contact us through the website. I think once we've had a chance to look through that and analyse some consultation responses, as I say, we'll be preparing our final plan for Welsh ministers. And once that plan is approved by Welsh ministers, we'll publish it early next year, along with a summary of the consultation responses, so you can see how we've reflected the views, perspectives and opinions of people who've participated in the consultation exercise in the development of our final plan. So please do get engaged in it. This is really important to us that we do get a broad perspective of views. We've had lots of great questions coming through to us in the chat bar. Please take the opportunity now over the next coming weeks to look at the plan and to respond to the presentation. And that probably brings me just to Simon to say a few words to close.
Yeah, dear James. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. And I think sort of looking at the questions that are coming in, probably you can sense it as well. It's that thing about you can't please all the people all of the time. We've tried our very best to try and listen to the views, and these views that we've had today in questions, again, are really important for us to take away and reflect on. And please do respond to the consultation as well. This is a new strategic plan. It's our first strategic plan, but I hope that we can actually try to think now collectively as a fresh approach with a renewed sense of purpose. I have to say as well that it's a strategy, and a lot of the questions around some of the detail, we haven't worked out all of that detail yet. And again, that following on from the point Ria made earlier, that's the exciting bit, isn't it, is working with you to see what that looks like in reality. And often for many of these problems as well, there are no easy silver bullets here, aren't there? Some of these problems have been with us for decades, but at least we're having a go in Wales. We're trying something new, trying something different to see how we can really get to grips with some of these things that have been troubling us as a nation for some time. I'm also conscious that Medr isn't a provider. We don't have any of our own learners. You do, many of you out there, you're sort of the people that are actually delivering to learners. So it's how we can support you, work with you to create an environment where that makes it even more effective than we're currently being. I suppose the final thing that I want to say is ultimately what are we trying to do here, going back to Hazelcorn in 2016 and where we are now in 2024, is to really look at what can we do that would make for better outcomes for learners and better outcomes for Wales. I get a real sense when I talk to individuals, stakeholders across Wales, that there's a real desire. People go into education and training because they want to make an impact, they want to make a difference. We've got that in our people in Wales. Now it's about harnessing that energy, ensuring that we can work together and collaborate to make things better in Wales. So thank you so much for your time. It's been really fascinating and really helpful for us in terms of the next stages. So diolch yn fawr to you all.